Yes, the UMO, Helsinki Jazz Orchestra trombone section, with an excerpt from the composition Pop by Kari Heinala. And this is a great example of modern Finnish big band writing. And as you've noticed, there's a bit more independent motion, more responsibility for the individual section members. And Kasperi and the gentleman will maybe tell you about some ideas, some tips for dealing with this type of music. Because, of course, in the 21st century, this type of music can also show up in your big band repertoire.
Right. So traditionally, a lot of big band writing evolves around the idea of sections working together, and you usually share the same material. So you're playing the same rhythms as your section mates, but in some of the more contemporary music, you're not always playing the same thing as the guy next to you. So I might be as lead trombone player playing a line with the second tenor or third trumpet, and Mikko playing second trombone might be doing something with the bari sax or the bass. So in more independent lines that you might be sharing with someone else in the orchestra, and when you're playing something like this, if you've got a melodic line, it's good to bring it out a little bit. And then when you play a long note, conversely, you can relax a bit, so sort of move out of the way and allow the people who are playing something more active to have the space. So these are some basic concepts for playing more contemporary music.
Well, and also when there's independent melodic motion that goes between, it's sort of almost call and response. Each voice has an independent melody. What I really liked about your performance was the fact that the articulation, regardless of whether Kasperi was playing it, Mikko or Pekka, it was always very, very uniform and very, very homogeneous. And once again, I'm assuming, this is also listening. So being very aware of what the person who plays a similar melodic line directly before you, how they are articulating and phrasing, and to copy that. So once again, very, very active listening that has to be done. So also very impressive, and once again, a very good example of just how important it is to be always attuned to what the colleagues are doing.
Right. It's good to bear in mind the context. I don't think this is the type of music to really bring out your own personal character. I think it's more, as Ed was talking about, maybe homogeneous or unified sound. Generally speaking, no vibrato, no effects, no sort of changing, not too much changing the tempo, more like think of glass, just a pure sound, in tune, vocal quality, roundness.
And also very apparent the quality of sound. And I know this is something we have not talked about today, but yesterday one of the things we were talking about with the trumpet players is, of course, having very good basic skills on your instrument. And of course, this is really where this sort of stuff pays off, but it also pays off in traditional big band music. So even if you only want or like to play in big bands as a trombone player, it's also very important to have some classical lessons, to have some bass information and a skill set in classical music, because that's only going to be positive for whatever music you're playing. So solid skills as a trombone player, good sound, good intonation, command of the entire evenness of sound through the whole range, and. And if you combine that with good listening skills, then of course you're well on your way to being a very good section trombone player.
That's right. Very good points. It tends to pay off even more in the more contemporary. It feels like the demands for those types of qualities are increasing, and all the more with the contemporary material. With composers taking, just like Kari here, influences from classical music, and some of the big band music that we play is sort of more like a wind orchestra, wind band.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, these are definite tendencies in large ensemble jazz writing in the 21st century. Of course, we're hearing maybe a bit less of the traditional Basie Ellington types of voicings in harmonic language. We're hearing more things that are coming from contemporary classical music, also things borrowed from wind orchestra, wind band music, and of course, since the genres and the borders between the genres have sort of fallen, there is more expected of us as big band trombone players, of course, to be able to not just play Basie or Ellington or Kenton, but also to play more contemporary things. If somebody tells you, please play this as if it were a Percy Grainger chorale, to know who Percy Grainger was and what's expected of you. Or in this case, to talk about, Kari Heinele. This, is also important stuff to know about. So once again, to increase your skill set, not only in the area of traditional big band playing, but also contemporary and classical playing. And of course, one of the instruments that has also changed a lot, or the role of the instrument has changed a lot in the last 50 years of big band playing, is the bass trombone. In the old days, the bass trombone was basically only the fourth tenor trombone. But what we've seen is the added responsibility that has been added to the position of bass trombone, melodic functions, doubling of bass lines, operating outside and away from the rest of the section, operating as an independent instrument, or very often with the bass and with the baritone saxophone or bass clarinet together. Some of the pioneers that sort of moved the instrument beyond people like George Roberts and Dave Taylor. So these days, also as a bass trombone player, very often you'll be put into a situation where you're sometimes leading the section, or playing an exposed melody, or playing very exposed bass lines. So this next example is also an excerpt from Pop, where we get to hear the bass trombone in a more prominent role in the section, of course. Yeah, very nice, and a wonderful example of contemporary Finnish big band music. We're sort of reaching the end of this series of educational videos, and I would like to once again thank the gentlemen of the trombone section of the UMO Helsinki Jazz Orchestra, for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with us. And one of the things we talked about yesterday with the trumpet section is the trumpet section is going to be preparing a list of sort of recommended and suggested listening and repertoire to check out. So I'm hoping that maybe we can ask you gentlemen to do the same thing for our listeners and viewers. Some listening examples, some things that you feel are very important for trombone section playing in a big band. A listening list, a viewing list, some things like that. Because to supplement what we've been talking about, it'd be great to hear some of your information. Give us some exact and sort of some exact places to go and to check out. Because once again, I can speak for myself, and I think for a lot of people in this day and age, we are so inundated with so much information out there. It's wonderful that we have access to all this information, but sometimes it's hard to filter. And of course, professionals like this, you've already done the filtering, So hopefully you can continue to help our viewers and listeners with some more tips to continue their education in big band section playing. And we're going to end this series of videos the way we started. We've got another excerpt from the wonderful Thad Jones composition. And yes, this was composed for the Thad Jones Mel Lewis Jazz Orchestra. It was recorded several times. It's still one of the ultimate classics of big band writing and big band playing. And if Mikko Mustonen has his trombone and music ready to go, I can't think of anything else to say. So please enjoy the UMO Helsinki Jazz Orchestra trombone section and Thad Jones, Cherry Juice.